Hello everyone, it's Stephen Whiteside here from theuptrend.com with this weekend's edition of Protect Your Portfolio. In this weekly presentation, we're only going to focus on weekly charts, so we're really targeting long-term investors, and typically we'll get you out of here in under 5 minutes. It may take a little longer because this weekend we have a lot of sell signals to deal with. Now, starting off with the VIX barely moved and certainly did not close above the previous week's high. So investors in Chicago, those options traders, they don't seem to be overly concerned at the moment, but the underpinnings of the market are starting to shift. Things would change on the VIX if it was to close above 1530 this coming Friday at 4:30. Now, starting off looking at the U.S. market, you can see that the NASDAQ is really outperforming at the moment, and any mid-cap, small-cap, micro-cap stocks are not doing well in 2024. So it's still a very focused rally at the moment. Now, yes, the S&P 500 did make a new high this week, but only 183 of the S&P 500 stocks actually closed higher on the week. Now, we are breaking out above 531.25, so 562.50 could be our next target to the upside. Now, on the NASDAQ 100, it was up over 3.5% on the week, making a new high, but only 46 of the NASDAQ 100 stocks were actually up on the week. Now, we are breaking out above our previous price target, and looks like we are heading towards 500. 500, of course, is a big round number, and it may take a melt up in some of those big cap tech stocks to take us up to 500. But right now, the rest of the market's not that enthusiastic. We now have a new weekly sell signal for the Russell 2000 after putting in a lower high. That is also true for U.S. small caps and micro caps, so that's not looking very pretty. And our first target will probably be the recent low for these major ETFs. So as you can see, the majority of the market was not moving higher this week, and a lot of the market is now back on weekly sell signals. Now, when we see investors dump mid-cap, small-cap, and micro-cap stocks, we call that the risk-off trade, and that certainly tells us that the tone of the market is starting to change. When we look at what the pros are doing, you can see they're still holding up there in the S&P 500, even though the majority of stocks were down on the week. But not so much for the mid-cap, small-caps, or micro-cap stocks. You can see the pros are jumping ship. Now, seasonally, what should happen this time of year? Well, we should see some selling into the last week of June, and then the start of the traditional summer rally. We'll just have to see if that's how things work out this year. What worked this week? Well, it was all about semiconductors once again. What didn't work? Well, anything commodity related did not work this week. Now, moving on to the Canadian market, and of course we don't have those big cap tech stocks, and so the Canadian market has not fared as well as the US market this year. The only thing that's really worked has been the energy sector, but right now we're back on a sell signal for energy stocks. We've got the TSX and the TSX 60 both back on weekly sell signals this week. Small caps holding up so far. They're sitting right on the edge of a new weekly sell signal. The venture exchange is back on a weekly sell signal. So are the banks, which were down over 3.5% on the week. So a big down move for Canadian banks after putting in a lower high. Then energy stocks, second week of a sell signal, down another 3.35%. Gold stocks, on the other hand, are still holding up, and a close on the iShares Global Gold ETF below 1925 this coming Friday would give us a new weekly sell signal for the gold sector. Now, looking at the Canadian market, it was very hard to find any winners this week. The only ETFs that were actually up on the week were ETFs that track markets outside of Canada, including the iShares World Index ETF, which ended the week up a dime after making a new high. Very hard to find anything that worked in Canada. We don't have all of those big cap tech stocks they have in the US, but we have one that is up there, and that is Shopify, which was up nearly 10% on the week and heading towards a new weekly buy signal that would happen this coming Friday if we were to close above $93.88. Okay, folks, that's all for this weekend's presentation. This is going to be a paid newsletter starting in July, and it's going to be included with your Uptrend membership. If you don't want the Uptrend membership, you don't need our daily charts, then of course you can get this newsletter for $99 per year, and it'll be on sale up until July 1st for only $79. And if you sign up at that rate, it'll renew at that rate going forward. So we're going to be sending out some marketing material on signing up for the newsletter this week. And of course, if you have any questions, just reply to any email you've received from us or write us at sales@theuptrend.com. Okay, folks, that is all for this weekend's presentation. I see we just hit the 5-minute mark, so we're getting pretty close to the stated goal. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Next time you'll hear my voice is on Monday morning, and at that time we'll take a look at the most actively traded stocks from Friday's trading action.